So the Democratic National Committee has a review in the works to try to figure out what exactly went wrong in the 2024 election. But it's raising some questions about what it's reportedly not looking into. 6 people briefed on the review's progress tell the New York Times it is expected to mostly steer clear of digging into whether former President Joe Biden should have run for re-election, whether he should have dropped out of the race earlier, and whether Kamala Harris was the right replacement. To quote the Times, party officials describe the draft document as focusing on the 2024 election as a whole, but not on the presidential campaign, which is something like eating at a steakhouse and then reviewing the salad. I want to bring in senior advisor to Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign and former campaign manager for Julian Castro's presidential bid, Maya Rupert. Basil Smikle is here with me, an MSNBC political analyst, Democratic strategist, and former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party. So, Basil, is the DNC missing something here, something obvious, or is there an argument that former President Biden dropping out, Kamala Harris having, 100 days to basically build a presidential campaign, that's not going to happen again in 2028. That's probably never going to happen again. So why waste your time?
No, I actually haven't spoken to my friends down there. I think all of this is up for discussion. Yeah, when you have a close election like we had, you could point to a lot of reasons why the Democrats lost, and all of them would be right. Should Joe Biden have stepped down or not earlier, or decided not to run earlier? Yeah. Did Kamala Harris have a very difficult time in trying to mount a campaign, raise the money, put a convention together, and get elected in 4 months? Was that impossible to do? Pretty much, but she wound up doing a damn good job of it, even if she didn't win at the end of the day. But I think also focusing on things like infrastructure are really critical.
So let's talk about that, because you and I were having a conversation offline, which is that when I go out and I'm going door to door with Democratic candidates, local level, state legislative level, whatever, they will often complain that they don't think they get the help from the Democratic Party that the Republicans give to their candidates. Is that a fair assessment?
It is absolutely fair. I've talked about this quite often. The infrastructure for the party is critically important, because it's not just about presidential campaigns or senatorial campaigns. It's everything from county executive and state legislators. I got the state party in New York. We were flipping local legislators in towns and cities all across the state. That matters because it's the building blocks for everything that happens above that. And it's not an election to election problem. This is a decades-long problem that has been in the making, going back at least to 2012. So it hampered Hillary Clinton's ability to get elected in 2016, and any Democrats' ability to get elected in 2024. 2020 and 2018 for Democrats was actually positive, but the margins were problematic. So we've got to, I think, go back to this important point about infrastructure. How do you build the party's infrastructure? That takes money, that takes time. And by the way, it takes spending money in areas and through consultants that are more representative of the constituents that make up that Democratic Party. Something that I think is a really hard conversation for the folks to have, but they should have it.
Every Democrat, Maya, that I've talked to has an opinion about what went wrong and what needs to be done differently going forward. My colleague, Alex Witt, actually spoke to the DNC chair, Ken Martin, on Sunday. Here's what he said Democrats need to do and why.
We actually have to stiffen our spine and stand up and fight for what we believe in, right? You know, the question I ask people all the time is, if you're not willing to fight like hell for what you believe in, do you really believe in it at all? And that's what's left with in the minds of not only huge portions of our base, but American people, which is they don't believe we're authentic. They don't believe that our party's willing to stand up and use the power we have to actually make a difference in their lives, to improve their lives, to make a difference in their communities. And that's the biggest challenge we have. We've lost the trust of so many parts of our coalition for so many years now.
Is that the biggest problem, Maya? Do you think Democrats have an authenticity problem? And if so, what exactly does that mean, and how do you solve it?
I definitely think that is a big part of what we're dealing with. I think for a very long time, Democratic candidates have really been concerned with saying, listen, things have gotten too chaotic. We can bring things back to normal, right? This sense of we can bring things back. And what that started to do is make people think that Democrats aren't trying to fight forward, aren't standing for things, but rather can revert us to the status quo. When people are this unhappy with the status quo, that message falls really flat with people. And so I think what we're seeing is a desire, and I think Ken's exactly right. We have to see candidates who are willing to unequivocally say what they are for, not sound like this has been message tested over and over again, not be afraid of being called woke or standing up for what they believe in and doing it consistently. And I think that's what we're going to see in 26 and 28. Successful candidates are going to be speaking plainly and clearly, but having a driving set of values. And that's what voters are responding to.
So honestly, Maya, do you think that Democratic candidates have been wimping out? Do you think that they have been too overly message tested? I'm just going to say again, and again, it's anecdotal, but when I was out in the 2024 campaign, when I was out in many campaigns, I see those candidates going door to door, maybe not a presidential candidate, but I see them going door to door. I hear them answering people's questions. Is this an excuse? Is this an excuse for maybe something larger?
I hear you. I think when we're talking about individual candidates, I have seen people campaigning, and I think what works on the ground, what people are doing is what needs to happen. But I think that there is also a national information ecosystem where the Democratic message has gotten watered down, and it has sort of turned into people saying things that for a lot of people don't mean something, right? We need to reconnect those values to what they actually mean to people. So yes, I definitely think that this isn't a problem of an individual campaign or candidate. It's a much, much larger issue. And it's not going to be solved by a single campaign or a single candidate. But I do think we have to be realistic about the way people hear the Democratic message right now. There is something that needs to be fixed. People aren't connecting rhetoric with what people are what any candidate is actually going to do for people.
If only it was as simple as Crispin the cat saying, Mom, I want attention and I want food.
We would get it immediately if that's all it was.
Maya Rupert, Basil Smikle, to be continued. Do we know when this report's coming out officially, Basil? I know you've been in touch with the guy working on it.
Not officially, but it's they're doing a lot of work for it. I will say that.
Okay.
They're doing a lot of work.
We'll have you both back for that. Basil Smikle, Maya Rupert, Crispin the cat. Thank you all.